I'm going to be talking about something that Amy and Philip addressed, the technological aspects that I work with also. I have with a colleague, I have a text out on social interaction technologies, and we just finished one on blogging, and now we're going to try to go towards Twitter. And of course, the technologies compel you to think in a certain way. All you have to do is use a computer. You type a sentence that's disagreeable to it, it puts a green line underneath it. Imagine someone like William Faulkner writing. Anyway, there's a couple of things I'd like to note before I start. I do not usually take this approach with something like Twitter because, although it technically would work, I use writing style mostly to get principles across to people who are writing college papers, master's theses, and dissertations. You can't, sometimes a master's thesis or dissertation, the title will fit on Twitter. That's about it. And then some of them, Twitter can't handle it unless they code it. Okay, so all those, though, have to be respected. I respect them. I use them. But if you have to say something that goes 100 to 300 pages, that's not the medium for it. The couple things I wanted to talk about has to do with teaching general semantics through writing and writing through general semantics. I'm scheduled to teach I think I'm going to be teaching a class online in writing for the media. I volunteered to be considered for it because of some changes we've made in curriculum. So I'm looking forward to see how that unfolds. I do teach other courses online as well as conventional ones. The course that I have that I'd like to be talking about right now would be a section on general semantics in a communication type course. Could be an education field as well. It could also be where you're teaching a writing class like Introduction to Media Writing, but you're using general semantics at least as a component. When I teach it, general semantics is something that I've always integrated, but I don't restrict it to general semantics. You start with the basic premise that's an ancient doctrine of perspicuity in style and clarity, and I then found that by using general semantics in addition to some traditional rhetorical and other principles that are put in textbooks on writing and composition, I was getting better results from students. What it does is it seems to force them out of the box, out of the circle, out of the sphere, whatever you want to get them out of. And it forces them to do things in extremes. Thinking of an article I read a long time ago by Richard Stein. The article was in all, at least as I recall, it was all Anglo-Saxon monosyllables. It was an exercise that she did. Try it sometime. Do a paragraph. It's a job. So it gave me the idea, why am I not using general semantics to teach writing? Because there's a lot of strange things that go on when you push general semantics fully. So that's what I'm going to be talking about here. And students have described it as a porcupine because the quills shoot out in different directions. This one drew a picture of like a sphere with different prongs going in different directions. Because all you have to do is hold on one thing long enough and extend it. And you don't have to continue writing that way, but you have to try it, and then you see what a discipline it is. In fact, I usually tell them, I used to teach exercise, anaerobic type, and I thought, well, you don't have to just lift weights. You can use Ashtanga yoga, which is something translated as power yoga. You can use springs, all kinds of different things, and isometrics and so on. I said, you don't have to use just weights to get your results. Well, you don't have to use, and I think if you do use just traditional rhetorical composition principles, you won't do as good a job. I think you do a better job when you integrate some of these. Now, I've only picked 4 here. Because I teach advertising, I have commercialism in me too. So I call this the is-less English, and then the other one I call the is-y English. And I have them do, don't have it here, but I have them do an exercise where all I want them to do is English, is-y English, where they just write in a paragraph all with is forms. I'll also do this one, where's Ben? Ben reminded me, I wrote something earlier on this, and I'm kind of Korzybskian because I blur, I have to be careful. Sometimes I'll attribute something to Korzybski even though it was done after by someone else, like Burland added the E prime, if I recall correctly. So English Prime is a very difficult thing to try, and when they first try it, a lot of them don't even identify that they've just used an is form. Sometimes I do an exercise with, I don't have it here, but on the four ises of Korzybski, especially the is of identity, and I have them said, I just say, okay, put all four of those into a paragraph, see if you can do it. And it's hard, because you don't think that way, you blend things from many sources. So what we have here is the is, which you're familiar with. I won't go through this. I use extensional language as one exercise. This is especially good when I work a lot with something called medical education and health communication with a number of scholars who are in medicine itself or psychology related to medicine. And they use a lot of empirical terminology, but they forget the context is not clear. So I say, well, now, if you're just writing this as an in-group to one another, it's clear. You all know how you use the language. But now, if somebody's coming in with intelligence, let's assume they have a PhD in some field like sociology or general anthropology or whatever, they're not going to understand those terms the way you do as your in-group of medical researchers. So then I ask them to, in fact, I just returned, came in yesterday from Rome, Italy. I was in Assisi, where I was at a conference that deals with medical education, and I introduced general semantics under that title to the group, and they said, you know, I think this is useful. Are they, no kidding? Anyway, and I used this indexing and dating in a medical context. But here, this is just a reminder for everyone. And Philip just showed Obama and then the projected Obama. You know, which you see on CSI a lot. How old was he when you last saw him? He was 15. Okay, now he's 25, and we have a computer-generated graphic. Okay, reports. I always go back to this in one way or another. And I have the bias of saying, do a report as clear as possible. They have a lot of trouble because they load the language. They put adjectives that shouldn't be there. They put evaluative terms in. And then I say, well, if you're going to do a judgment, then make it a good judgment. Make it something that's clear and understandable. You can still judge things. Just how many of you watch Chopped? Any of the food shows? I love it the way they give their critical comments at the end. Your souffle was wonderful, but hers was just a little better. That's what and others would just say, you really fell short on that. You were, where were you, asleep on this? You know, so it depends on how you're going to present that judgment. Are you going to massage it in, or are you going to pound it in? All right. Now, this last one, abstraction. One thing I'll mention there is Hayakawa's book talked about dead level abstracting, high level and low level. You know what he missed? Mid-level. And mid-level is where most of the shenanigans occur, because most people don't talk in terms of ontological reality, ontological abstraction or metaphysics. Yes, you will get the low-level abstracting. Raoul said to Abigail this, that, and the other, and Abigail said to Kenji this, that, and that. Yeah, you will hear that, but you don't hear too much of the super high abstraction level, like being nothingness, okay? Where you get it is in politics, which is what we hear every day. So I give you a quick example. X is quite a leader. One of my aunts was from Cork, Ireland, and she would say, oh, she's quite the lady, isn't she? And then my other aunt, who was from Abruzzo, Italy, would say, I don't mean to offend anybody, but she would say, oh, Eileen is saying she's a putana. That's a bad word in Italian. I mean, she's a woman who's like a tart, you know. So I say, and I was young, I didn't understand this. So whenever she says, oh, she's quite the lady, that's what she means, the opposite. Okay? All right, so I had a little interpretation going on. Let me go to the next one, because I have to watch my time here, or Wisconsin will write me off the map. All right, here's some samples. And remember, I'm approaching this stylistically. So I'm saying if you're interested in developing style over a continuous discourse, at least an essay. In fact, I don't even now, I call up to all my students, I just use the word composition. Because I'm used to journaling and doing things. I say, journaling, what's that? I go, oh, I don't need the headache. So I get a composition. Oh, why don't you say so to begin with? So stylistics. Here's one of our WS's, William Shakespeare. What they would say in Texas, where I lived for a while, Billy Bob Shakespeare. English Prime practices neither borrowing nor lending, for lending results in bad debts and borrowing dulls minds. Now that would be English prime, okay? Now we go over to stylistic extensional language. Well, the human heart beats normally about 70 times per minute. It's about 12 centimeters long and this wide and so on. That's from Mosby Medical Encyclopedia. Yeah, I borrowed that. Over here we have the report. I never went to school more than 6 months in my life. This is from Abraham Lincoln. I forgot to put it down. That's the report. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but will never forget what they did here. Inference. Okay? They did remember what he said there more than what all these people who died. You almost think, if you go to the battlefield, it's a pretty brutal memory, you know, but you remember his one paragraph long speech. I am never easy. I thought this was poetic because I thought Lincoln was poetic. I am never easy now when I am handling a thought till I have bounded it north and bounded it south and bounded it east and bounded it west. Okay? That's a beautiful way of judging, saying, giving a judgment or something, rather than I like it, I dig it. Okay. Now there's 5 minutes. Give me 5. Oshkosh 5. Oshkosh Bagosh 5.
Oshkosh Bagosh.
All right, this I'm going to give you because last time I was in town, last year, I saw 3 celebrities. I'll pretend I saw 4. I'll add Ben to it because they make it seem. I saw Wolf Blitzer, Tony Bennett, and Richard, forget his name. He plays in Law and Order. Belzer, yeah. And they were all. I saw them all around the south part of Central Park. It was wonderful. Now, I've worked for years with Native Americans, Canada and the U.S., and they use a symbol, a circle. So they like portals and circles. I use these a lot. Before doing all this stuff with students, I tell them, I had to draw this myself. I couldn't find a felt tip pen, and I didn't have it on this. That's an Indian symbol. You see it on horses. Sometimes they'll paint it on. And it symbolizes north, south, east, and west in Native culture. They'll also do it with vertical ones, but I don't like to use that so much because it's suggesting Christian types imagery and so on. So I use this one and I say, okay, I want you to go write about 4 celebrities you've seen. Okay? Now we got a category of 4. Then I chisel them down to using, I borrowed this from the Tibetan, you don't have to use the Tibetan symbol, but the circle with the 3 branches. Then maybe I said, it could be any kind of tripartite division. So I'll tell them, look for A, B, and C. I'm still giving them things to look for. I'm giving them what Burke called terministic screens. So I'm still blinding them with categories, all right? Now, we're going to go to one that even Safeway has used for years, the yin-yang form. I use it both ways, horizontally and vertically, I don't care. But I say, okay, just look for these 2 things. Because people love 2 categories, A, non-A. Euclid, non-Euclid, okay. So I say, go look for those things. What am I doing, though? I'm not giving them unadulterated perception or the possibility for that, which is what drew me a lot into general semantics. So here, that's called in Japan, you probably know, an enso. Okay? Now, an enso, I have it open at this end. Because when they do it, sometimes they close it, sometimes they don't. It depends on the Zen master who draws it. Have you seen these things? I love them. Some Zen practitioners, every day they do it enso. Then what it does, I'm telling them, go out, like in grounded theory, don't look for anything in particular. See what you see. Get rid of the categories, get rid of the prejudices. And then from that, start writing. But if I give them that right off, they don't know what, have a clue what I'm talking about. So, last thing I'll give you is this. You have a copy of this here. Now you see these 4 possibilities. I'm sorry I don't have the technological skill to put them into the form of an Indian shield or medicine wheel. Pick one of those, and if you're really daring, do all 4. And just write 1 paragraph before you leave on this evening, and in one of those 4. Try 1 paragraph of English prime if you haven't done it for a while, and see how you do with it. Because one of the things that you get out of E prime is when I'm writing, I use is, okay, but I try to minimize it. And Ben was saying to me when you first started studying general semantics, you found that to be very useful. See, I'll write a lot of times in academic writing, and I'll say A constitutes such and so rather than A is. I try to get other words that are even if they have to repeat, I'll throw in and use just for stylistic variety, but I don't just cling to it. And I try to use other words. Another interesting side note is this. In Spanish, if you meet somebody, how many of you speak Spanish in here? I'm not fluent in it, but how would I answer? I say, ¿Cómo se llama? Italian, I'd say, ¿Cómo se llama? And then you would say,
Muy bien.
oh, you would say, me llamo Doris, right? And I would say, me llamo Ricardo, right? Now, what does that say in literally when it's translated? How do you call yourself? Okay, in both languages it's the same thing. I call myself. Now some of you are old enough to remember Sidney Poitier. What was this movie? He played a tough cop. Remember? Mr. Tibbs. And he said, they call me Mr. Tibbs. Okay? He didn't say, I am Mr. Tibbs. Or I'm Mr. Tibbs. They call me Mr. Tibbs. There's another program I love. I teach film as one class in film. Grey Ghost. This is I think it's called Grey Ghost, the series. Grey Ghost is what they call me. Jim Mosby is my name. Okay? He was a rebel, I think, from the Civil War. And I thought, think of these ways of getting around that is form, and this is one. These are some literary ways they've gotten away. My name. I'm not Mr. Tibbs. They call me Mr. Tibbs. So it's if you think long enough, and you have to be inventive and creative, because sometimes you get jammed. You're tired. It's 2 in the morning. You're writing. Will do for now. I'll try another one tomorrow. Okay, just try that, and that's all I'll have to say for now. And see how you do with one of these. But that one is always a fun one to try. Thank you.